and welcome to the Derek Deputy video game show. I'm your host, Derek Deputy. Today, we're going to talk about a bunch of Activision, Microsoft court case stuff, which is kind of boring, but a lot of stuff came out from behind the scenes in the video game industry, so that's why we're talking about it. Also going to talk about The Last of Us leaks, and has Mario changed its voice actor? I don't know. We'll talk about it. First, if you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe, like the video, click the notification bell, leave a comment, give me your opinion on anything we talk about here today. If you're listening on a different podcasting service, Amazon, I think, has a podcasting service. This is on Spotify, anything like that. Make sure if there's like a follow or subscribe button to click that. Subscribe to the RSS feed. And I mostly want to get right into things. So let's get right into things. So last week, the FTC, Activision, Microsoft thing went into the courtroom. I'm not going to get too far into specifics. I've mentioned it before. I'm going to mention it again. I'm just tired of talking about the Microsoft Activision acquisition. It's just kind of boring. I don't want to go too deep into that part of it. The interesting stuff this week came from like behind the scenes type information. For example, and I'm not going to talk about this in the correct order. I'm not talking about this in any particular order, just kind of the order that I found things. I want to give a shout out to all the journalists who covered this, because I used a ton of articles from a ton of different places to really look into this. So, and I don't. Once again, there's a lot here, so I don't want to get too in depth. That they're using, the FTC is using the fact that Xbox made Starfield and Redfall exclusive as evidence against the purchase. And then at one point, Microsoft said they've lost the console wars, which is something Phil Spencer's kind of gone into before. He, at some point, I don't remember which interview, he mentioned that, hey, they lost the most important generation to lose, that you didn't need to lose, like you shouldn't have lost. It was a generation where things were starting to go digital, and that was bad. And so, and here they reaffirmed that's how they think. The Starfield was almost a PS5 exclusive, which is an interesting thing that they talked about. It was apparently part of the reason Microsoft bought Bethesda was to keep Starfield so it would release on Xbox. Jim Ryan was there. He mentioned that if the deals... Well, he wasn't actually there, from what I understand. It was like a video thing. He was brought in through video. But he mentioned that if the deal closes, Sony couldn't tell Activision about its next console, or upcoming hardware in general, I'd assume, which would be a problem. A lot of the conversation about this was redacted. But when asked about Sony working with the Mojang, the Minecraft company, after Microsoft bought them, there didn't seem to be problems. Then there was a bunch of companies that Microsoft thought about buying. They thought about buying Sega, Bungie, Square Enix, just a ton of different companies there that Microsoft was thinking about buying. We don't know if they actually made offers or anything. Just that there was considerations within Microsoft to try and buy these different companies. And then at one point, Matt Booty, the Xbox Game Studio chief, was talking about spending Sony out of business. And apparently this was referring to industry trends that they never pursued and unrelated to the acquisition. Although, looking at what companies they were wanting to buy, I'm not sure I 100% believe this. Like, he was under oath, so he had to be telling the truth, or what he thought was the truth, but I don't know. It sure seems like that's what they're trying to do. It kind of seems like it's what both companies are trying to do. Jim Ryan at one point confirmed he wanted the deal blocked. Like, he told Activision he wanted the deal blocked. He confirmed they were worried about Call of Duty on Game Pass. He said he talks to a lot of publishers and that they all don't like Game Pass, which there might be some truth to that, because the type of publishers Jim Ryan would talk to would be the more like AAA publishers, and Game Pass tends to work better for like the smaller games, the indie games. So he's probably telling the truth. There was conversation whether Nintendo was in the same market as PlayStation and Xbox. Of course they are. A lot of the same third-party games come to all of those consoles. And if Nintendo's not in the same market, then what market are they in? And why would the FTC not be going after them? Then Bobby Kotick, who is a piece of garbage, the Activision Blizzard CEO, just like literal human garbage. But he came out and he said that he thinks the next Nintendo system is close to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One power-wise. And the internet went up in arms because they kept getting misquoted as if he knew, but it was really more of a he thinks type situation. And he also admitted he made a bad decision not bringing Call of Duty to Switch. So that was interesting. There was stuff about Microsoft aiming to make Game Pass more mobile friendly. And then they also revealed what Microsoft thinks the price of Project Q is likely to be, which is like $300 or under. Which every article I've read about that mentions like it's a definite thing that Microsoft knows the price. But I don't think Microsoft can definitely know the price of the Sony hardware. So I'm not sure how they would have such information. It seems unlikely they definitely know Project Q is that price, but it's still interesting information. All in all, the entire court case thing was rather interesting. We learned a lot from it, but I don't know. I just want this purchase to be done and over with. I'm not sure if I really have an opinion if I want the purchase to go through or not, to be honest. Microsoft is definitely in third place in the quote-unquote console wars. There aren't really any console wars anymore. But Microsoft definitely has kind of had a hard time through the Xbox One generation and even the start of the Xbox One Series X. They've had a bit of a rough time. So it would make sense why they might need Activision, but at the same time, it's like $1 billion company. So it's kind of a tough decision. I'm not sure how I feel either way, to be honest. But I'm just ready for there to be a final decision from all the legal people and for this whole thing to be done with, because I'm tired of it taking up the news all the time. So some of the people listening may have heard of a store called Micro Center. If you have not, It is a electronic store. It's kind of a large electronic store. They focus just on electronics. You're probably thinking similar to like Best Buy at this point, but it's not quite like that. It's actually more than that. They sell all kinds of like computer parts as well. Actually, it really is more of a computer store than an electronics store, but they sell the other electronic stuff. But they'll sell like graphics cards, RAM, hard drives, all sorts of stuff, all sorts of hardware. I didn't see a whole lot of software, and that's why I'm mentioning about this today. We've, until recently here in Indiana, we did not have a Micro Center, but one opened up relatively close to me, so I went to check them out this week, and it was an interesting experience. I enjoyed going there. They had a lot of stuff that you just can't find anywhere else. But I want to focus on the gaming stuff, so I'm not going to go too in-depth into all that other stuff. I want to focus on the gaming. But even that, they had a lot of stuff you just can't find anywhere except the internet. Like, they had racing wheels, which I've never seen a video game racing wheels, like, physically in stores before, unless it's, like, the really cheap ones. But they had those, which I'm not really that into racing games, but I know a lot of people are. They also just had a lot of hardware. They didn't have any software. They did not have any actual video games that I saw. I saw like a few Nancy Drew PC games, and that was like all they had as far as software goes. But as far as hardware goes, like, they had everything. Of course, they had PlayStation 5s and Xbox Series X, which is the first thing people think of when they think video game hardware. But they also had like those little mini consoles. They had controllers. They had a lot of really cool stuff. Since Fry's closed down, we haven't really had a store quite like this in my area, and I'm glad that we do now, because it's cool to just go look at video game hardware once in a while. I do think I preferred Fry's a little bit more, because they did have actual video games, like they had the software as well, but I think Micro Center might have a bigger selection of the hardware than what Fry's used to have. So, I don't know. There's plus and minuses there, advantages and disadvantages. But I'm glad it's open. And I plan on shopping there again in the future. So, this week, I have been playing Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. It came out last year, and it is generally a pretty good game. I think most Star Wars fans will be quite happy with it. It follows the story of the entire Skywalker saga. So it follows the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, and the sequel trilogy. And it's pretty fun. It feels less like a Lego game and more like a big budget video game as far as like gameplay goes. Combat feels very good. Moving around in the environment feels good. Shooting in particular feels good. Like, it's not the best, but it's pretty good. Better than what I'd expect out of a Lego game. I love the Star Wars stories. It's very good at making humor about those stories, about those moments, without, like, disrespecting the source material. Generally, I'm pretty happy with the game. My only real complaint, is actually about the cutscenes. They do too many cutscenes, in my opinion. Cutscenes are definitely a necessity in telling these stories, but there are moments in the games which I felt like they were doing a cutscene that I could have been playing instead. For example, in episode 2, when Anakin goes to Tatooine and he fights all the he kills all the sand people. That is just like a brief cutscene in this game, and it's kind of glanced over. And I feel like that could have actually been gameplay. Like, it would have been a little bit dark. I'll give you that. And maybe that's why they didn't. But there's also several other moments that were combat moments that felt like could have been gameplay. Particularly in episode 1. Which episode 1 already lacks a whole lot of combat and isn't a great movie to make a game out of. And so it's weird that they took a few moments that could have been gameplay and made them not gameplay and just made them cutscenes. Like when Padme and them are on the hangar, you get to play as Anakin in space. You get to play as the Jedis fighting Darth Maul. But you could have also had the player play as Padme and the hangar and fight off some of the droids, and they didn't do that. That was just like a quick cutscene instead. And so that's a little bit annoying. There was a lot of moments that were cutscenes that should have been gameplay, but the game was fun. There isn't a whole lot to the main story. It is just the movies. And so the main story, and a lot of it is just walking from place to place. But there is a lot of content in the side content and the side missions. I actually looked it up on howlongtobeat.com or whatever the name of the website is called. I don't remember. But the main story, it says, is only like 15 to 20 hours. But there's nearly 500 hours of content. So there is a lot to do within the game. It is very fun. It is graphically, it looks quite good. I just wish they didn't make so much of it cutscenes instead of gameplay. But a solid 8 out of 10 on in my mind. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. So, there have been a lot of leaks this week, rumors and speculation, and the one I specifically want to talk about here is for The Last of Us Part 3. I am a big fan of the first The Last of Us game. I really enjoy that game. I think it's fun. I think it has a great story. I haven't played the second one yet. I plan on it. I was waiting for it to go on sale. It did go on sale, and I'm planning on playing it soon. It is in my backlog. I kind of play those in order of game length, so I can get through the shorter ones to get to the longer ones. And I think I'm going to be playing it here probably within the next month or so. I don't know, but I'm going to be playing it here soon. Point is, there are leaks for The Last of Us Part 3, which is a bit odd for a multitude of reasons. One, the two leakers involved are generally more movie leakers, movie, TV show type people. My theory for this is maybe they're using movie studios to do the motion capture. I think that's what makes the most sense, and that's why these particular people have this information. But they are both generally pretty reliable, and so this is probably true. They say this information is for The Last of Us Part 3. There are people speculating that they might be incorrect because they know more about movies than they do video games, and that this could actually be for the multiplayer game, The Last of Us Factions. And I think that actually makes sense with some of the information provided. So, what we know from Daniel RPK, who is on Twitter and also has a Patreon, part of the plot will be about a group of scavengers surviving on the outskirts of a post-apocalyptic city, crammed into a Victorian house that serves as their base. They are still casting some roles, and he gives a little bit of information about the roles they're casting. I'm not going to go too far into that. You can go look it up. But then another insider, who also normally focuses on movie stuff, claims that the motion capture and audio recording begins later this year, with Ellie having a role, quote-unquote, at least as big as she did in Part 2, unquote. I find this interesting, partially because of the sources. They aren't your usual video game sources, but they are still relatively reliable. I do think it is likely The Last of Us Factions and not Part 3, but it could be Part 3. I think it's probably a little bit too soon, though, for Part 3. There was almost like a full decade between The Last of Us Part 1 and The Last of Us Part 2. And, like, almost. It wasn't quite a full decade, I think. I don't remember the exact dates, but it was pretty close. I think it's going to be a while before we hear about The Last of Us Part 3, but The Last of Us Factions is supposed to be soon, and I think this makes sense. I think the information about the roles they give us and this type of the information provided makes sense to The Last of Us Factions. I hope we hear about that soon. I'm going to be playing The Last of Us Part 2 for the first time here soon. I hope I enjoy it. I'm sure I probably will. And it's just a good time to be a fan of The Last of Us, it sounds like. There is a new Avatar game coming out, and I'm not talking about the blue people. I talked a little bit about a mobile game at one point, a few episodes ago. I don't remember exactly when, but there was a mobile game, and I mentioned that I was disappointed it wasn't a console game. Well, now we're getting a separate console game for Avatar: The Last Airbender that I'm pretty hyped for. It is called... Let me remember the name here. Avatar: The Last Airbender, Quest for Balance. It is being developed by Bamtang Games, who they've created the other Nickelodeon games here recently. Being published by Game Mill Entertainment, also usually involved in the Nickelodeon games. They're relatively unknown. Bamtang Games is the Nickelodeon games, so that's like all they've done. This game looks good though. I watched the trailer. It looks like it's gonna just be following the cartoon pretty heavily, which is fine. I don't think we need much more than that, as long as it's fun to play. Graphically, it's kind of a weird graphic style. I'm not expecting too much out of this, but it does look fun to play, and that's what matters the most to me. I really enjoyed the Legend of Korra game, made by Platinum Games a few years back. Actually, it's been longer than a few years at this point, but that game was very fun. I hope this game will also be just as fun. It looks like there's going to be puzzle elements. I'm hoping there's like action elements. The trailer didn't show too much gameplay, but it showed enough. And yeah, I'm pretty excited. there will apparently be 9 playable characters, including the gang. Aang, Toph, Sokka, and Katara are confirmed as playable characters. I'm sure Zuko and Iroh will be as well. Hopefully Azula. Yeah. The game will apparently focus on solving puzzles, manipulating the elements, as well as doing side quests. Hopefully there's action and combat. Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty fun. It'll apparently have 2-player local or online co-op, which I'm not a big multiplayer guy, but I'm glad it's offered here. A little bit weird that we're getting 2 Avatar games in 1 year. Actually, 3 if you count the Blue People. But that's a completely different franchise. Although that's also weird that they're releasing an Avatar The Last Airbender and an Avatar, like the Blue People game in the same year. Like, that could be a little bit confusing for some people who aren't super familiar with the franchises, buying it for like Christmas gifts for other people. But hopefully the Quest for Balance will be good. I'm planning on checking it out. We're also going to be talking about another Nickelodeon game later in the episode. But first, I want to talk about some stuff related to The Sims. I said earlier that there were a lot of leaks this week. Here's another one. I want to be honest. I'm not sure this counts as a leak. I have trouble counting job listings as leaks. I guess sort of, but not really. But still, there was a job listing for The Sims Project Renee, which is going to be The Sims 5. Let's be real, it is The Sims 5. It has revealed details about the next Sims game, Sims 5. It looks like it's going to be taking a free-to-play route. It stated that Sims 5 will be free to enter, boasting a free and paid in-game marketplace and paid for content. And to be honest, this isn't entirely news. I think this makes sense for The Sims. It's always been a game full of DLC, full of expansions, full of paid content. Even back in The Sims 1, there were all kinds of expansions, and you could go online and buy outfits and stuff. So I think this just kind of makes sense for The Sims. I think it is a good decision from EA. I hope this means we'll have better expansions at the beginning, because that's always something The Sims kind of struggles with, is the first few expansions. Just don't always feel like they're getting the game up to snuff. But I am excited for The Sims 5. I think Project Renee looks great. We're going to take another break real quick, and we'll be right back. Don't go away. I promise we're going to be right back after just a little bit of music plays. Just a little bit of music. We'll be right back. So the next thing I want to talk about is a little bit of an older story at this point, but I didn't get to it last week. Actually, I didn't even know about it till after I recorded last week. So I did talk about the Nintendo Direct last week, and they showed off a new Mario game, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and they showed off a new WarioWare game, WarioWare Move It. And I think both games look good, but that is not what I really am talking about here. Warning, this is going to be a really dumb thing to talk about, but like it felt worth talking about because I do enjoy those games. Some people think Charles Martinet is not doing the voices for these games. They're listening to Super Mario Bros. Wonder, the trailer, the WarioWare trailer. They're hearing Mario, they're hearing Wario, and apparently it does not sound like Charles Martinet. And like I said, I think it's kind of dumb. I think it very clearly sounds like Charles Martinet. They might be giving him a different voice direction a little bit. It does sound maybe a little bit different. Not much, though. Not enough for me to think, hey, this is a different voice actor. But a lot of people online are talking about it. It was like a trending topic on Twitter. And I don't know. There are some sample clips online. You can go hear for yourself. I think at some point in our lifetime, Charles Martinet is going to stop doing the voices. He'll retire, or he or something bad might happen. I don't know. But at some point, we're gonna have Mario games that have voice acting without Charles Martinet. It's an unfortunate reality of life, an unfortunate, like inevitability. But I don't think this is it. I think these do sound like Charles Martinet to me. I think he is probably involved in these projects. But a lot of people think otherwise. Sure. Anyway, time to talk about something else. Let's talk about something a little bit less dumb and a little bit more interesting. Actually, not interesting. Bad. I would say bad. We're going to talk about something a little even worse than this, unfortunately. We'll get right to that here. So Niantic is a company that I do talk about occasionally on this podcast, and that's partially because I still am very much into Pokemon Go. I play it nearly every day. I really enjoy the game. It gives me a good excuse to get out and walk around. I really enjoy the game. Unfortunately, they've been making some decisions that the player base generally disagrees with here lately. I don't think that's the entire reason this happened. I think there's other aspects to it, but that definitely probably didn't help. You see, Niantic is apparently struggling a little bit. They're having some revenue problems. Even after they said, no, we're doing fine, just like a few months ago. They're saying, hey, there's some revenue problems. They tried to expand too quickly. Stuff went really well during the pandemic when they made some changes. And now it's not going as well. And to be clear, not going as well for Niantic is still doing pretty well. They are probably, people are estimating they're probably hitting numbers close to like what they were before the pandemic. But because things went so well for them during the pandemic, now that it's going down, they have to downsize. So they canceled some games. They canceled a Marvel game, which is weird because you think that would do really well, but I'm not sure how well it would do in a Niantic type format. I don't know, honestly. Hard to judge. I think, and they also canceled like an NBA game and some other games. Pokemon Go is still good. Pikmin, I think, is still good. And they also recently launched like their new original IP that is still good. Which is kind of dumb. I think their new game is dumb, but still, those seem to be fine. They mostly just canceled games that were in development, and they also laid a bunch of people off, which is always bad. They say they'll be planning on focusing all their attention on Pokemon Go, canceling other projects. Yeah. The Marvel game actually sounds like it could have been good, but I'm reading about it now here, and it sounds like it could have been interesting, but whatever. Yeah. Sources Kotaku, by the way. But Pokemon Go did come out and confirm it. Niantic came out and confirmed it. The big problem with Niantic is they're so focused on making these games that are all essentially the same thing. And people aren't as into those types of games at this point. So it's not been going well for them. They should just focus on Pokemon Go. I probably wouldn't have even done the new IP. I probably wouldn't have done Pikmin. I think they caught lightning in a bottle with Pokemon. It's like the exact IP that fits into what they're trying to do perfectly. And they should just listen to their players more about it. But it is what it is. I do want to talk about something a little bit lighter, a little bit better next. So let's talk about Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl 2. So, Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl was like a Super Smash Bros. Like game that came out, I think it was in 2020. Might have been 2019, might have been 2020, I don't remember. Might have even been 2021, I honestly don't remember off the top of my head. But it got a lot of hype when it was first announced, and it came out. People played it for a little bit, but it didn't quite reach the potential everyone thought it might. Now they're coming out with a second one, and it's going to have more characters. It's going to have Jimmy Neutron, who I think should have been in the first game. We don't know for a fact everyone who's returning, but the part of the box art leaked, so we do know it exists. And I will probably pick it up. I hope they expand the single player a little bit. One of my big problems in the first game is there just wasn't enough to do. You could play against friends. It was great for that, but there wasn't enough to do outside of that. I was excited though about the first game because the character roster was just like very good, and so if they just take that character roster, include a few more characters and a few more game options, I think they could really have something. Right now, one leak I saw said that all former characters were returning, but the other leaks I've seen hasn't really mentioned that, so we don't know that for a fact. On the box, we see Jimmy Neutron, Vlad from Danny Phantom, Squidward, return. We see SpongeBob, Cora, Patrick, Ginny, and Garfield are all returning, which is cool. I never got to play as the DLC characters because I just didn't want to buy the DLC. Honestly, I wasn't playing the game enough. I hope this time they can even get some of like their live action stuff in there. It'd be cool to see characters from like iCarly, especially with how much they enjoy just including memes. I think that could be a good choice. So I think there's a lot of potential here. Granted, there was a lot of potential in the first game and it didn't quite meet that potential. But I think hopefully they learned from their mistakes and this game will be way better than the first one, which was a little bit disappointing, honestly. I enjoyed playing it. It was fun to play, but like there just wasn't enough to do. Hopefully they go a little bit more in depth with a sequel. So that's it. That was the show for today. I do want to let everyone know I probably won't be doing an episode next week. I just have other plans. I'll be doing other things. It's going to be a busy week, so I won't be putting an episode out. But I do try to put an episode out nearly every week. Skipping next week, but the week after I'll be back. New episode around the same time every week. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, click the notification bell. leave a comment about anything we discussed today. Give me your opinions. I'd love to hear more viewer or listener feedback. If you're listening on another podcasting platform, Spotify, anything like that, make sure if there's like a subscribe or a follow button to click that and subscribe to the RSS feed. I'm hoping if we can get like 100 consistent listeners, which nowhere near that right now, but if we can get to that number, I'm hoping in the future we might set up a Discord server. That way people listening on other platforms can still give their opinions and be heard. But it would be open for anyone if I do that. But that's in the future if we get enough listeners, or I feel like a Discord server would actually be used. For now, you may just have to go over to the YouTube video and comment there instead when you get a chance if you want me to see it. Anyway, once again, my name is Derek Deputy. This has been the Derek Deputy Video Game Show. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. And hopefully you'll hear from me here soon. Again, thanks.